We continue in the Sikha here on page 29. We're learning the Sikha of Mitzvahs B'Teilus Lasad Lavai. We're in the middle of Siv Gimel, where it says, the last line on page 29, it says, V'zeu Achiluk. So we're actually in the middle of discussing this concept of Nitzchias HaTeira Lasad Lavai, that the question here is, if it says that Mitzvahs B'Teilus Lasad Lavai, isn't that a clear contradiction to the concept of the Nitzchias of Teira? If the Rambam tells us that it's a dava, barer, furish, that the Teira is a medes, la'olam, 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 the Nitzchias of Teira. And then at the same time, you say, Mitzvahs B'Teilus Lasad Lavai, biggest contradiction. How could that be? So, possibly you can come and say that this whole concept of the Nitzchias of Teira means in the frame of time when Torah mitzvahs is relevant, that within that frame of time, there'll be no change in those mitzvahs. But once you come to the time where Torah mitzvahs is not relevant anymore, so to speak, so then it'll be batal. So that's not a contradiction to Nitzchias HaTorah. So we began learning last week, and the Rebbe says that can't be true. Because really, the source of the concept of Nitzchias can't be related to any frame of time. The reason why Torah is Nitzchias is because it's the Ratzon of the Eibishter. And it's not Stam the Ratzon of the Eibishter. It's the Pnimius Ratzon of the Eibishter, which has no Matara, no Inyan. This is it. This is the expression of the essence of the Eibishter himself, without any other tachlis. It's the essence of the Eibishter is in the mitzvah. Just like the Eibishter himself does not change, the Ratzon of the mitzvah can't change. That's where we're holding. Okay, let's continue inside where it says, V'zeu achiluk. V'zeu achiluk, shebei mitzvahs ha-teira, turn over to page 30, la-tzivuyim, shal yidei ha-neviim. The difference between the mitzvahs, the Taryag mitzvahs and the Teira, and then various different tzivuyim that the Eibusha commands the neviim to do different things. What's the difference between them? You need to... Yeah. Okay, so what's the difference? So the Rebbe explains, Shatzivuyim shal yidei ha-neviim, all the different various commands that the Eibusha gives Yidden through the neviim, him l'tzorech tayelas acheres. It's for a certain purpose. The Eibusha commands, and it's not expressing the Eibusha himself in it. Related to a certain existence, which demands certain things, so the Eibusha wants that the world should run in a certain way, and certain things that are missing in the world, so the Eibusha, these are tzivuyim that relate already to a Metzias. Right? What's the difference between Pnimiyus Haratzon and Chetzenius Haratzon? Chetzenius Haratzon means that it's a level within the person, or in this case, it's a level within a Lakos, where the world, Velt is a Metzias. It relates to a certain Metzias in the world. So, relative to that Metzias of the world, you have the Ratzon of the Eibishter, how he wants the world to run and function. But that's not what mitzvahs are about. Mitzvahs is not because the Eibishter sees the best fit for the world to run according to the Taryag mitzvahs. Mitzvahs comes from the essence of the Eibishter himself, which is removed of everything. It's just expressing the Eibishter as he is, what he is. Right, so that
was
yeah.
The difference between mitzvahs and laws for a country.
Right.
Comes from the Veld.
Creates the right.
There's mitzvahs we have as well. So it's very connected.
Yeah, true. A similar concept. Okay. The Rebbe explains, needless to say, those various commands that you have in Navi that are regarding permissible things. When the Navi, there's a Nevuah that says that you should go to this place, go to that place, or al telchu, not to go. Many different things in Nevuah where the Eibusha speaks to Nevi'im regarding different activity that should not be done. Elegam b'tzivui b'inyanei ha-Torah. Even if it's a command relating to matters of Torah. But still, it's related to the union of Torah. So the Navi is not being commanded because this is the tachlis in itself. It's an encouragement to command Yidden to be careful and not to be over on what it says in the Torah. So yeah, it's taka relates to the mitzvahs of the Torah, but it's not the real essence of what mitzvahs are about. Mitzvahs are, the Eibusha says, here, do this is it. Mashenke in the Nevuah, the Eibusha commanding to get Yidden to do a mitzvah, so that's a level of a tzivuy that's related to something else. You can't say that this is it. So therefore, those tzivuyim, of all the tzivuyim of the Navi, are all things that are temporary. They're for that time period. Yeah, it's like a brought in the Nevi'im. Not all. See, there's a distinction. Emes is that not every single Nevuah that the Nevi'im heard from the Eibishter was recorded in Nach. The Nevi'im heard the Nevuahs from the Eibishter much more than we know of that was recorded in Nach. What's the pshat? So it always says that there's a Nevuah shehutzrachal l'dairis. Yeah, look in Hara 34.
We noticed once that there was thousands of Nevi'im or something.
There's first of all, there are many Nevi'im that does not talk about. We're on page 230. There are many Nevi'im that it talks that we don't know of. There was many Nevi'im. And then even the Nevi'im that we do know, many Nevuahs that they had were not recorded in the Nach. Look at Hara 34. Va'at shegam Nevuahs shehutzrachal l'dairis shenichtavu b'sifrei Nevi'im. The Nevuahs that are recorded in the Nevi'im are those Nevuahs that have relevance and they're needed, that you can use the teichen of these Nevuahs for future generations. But nevertheless, even those Nevuahs, when Mashiach comes, are not going to be relevant anymore, will be bottled. So which means, what the Rebbe is saying is, the Ratzon of the Eibishter that was revealed in Nevuah is also a very powerful Ratzon. It's a Ratzon that's Negeya for thousands of years, for all generations. You have the Ratzon of the Eibishter, which is within creation, which is limited to time and space. There's occurrences that happen in a certain time in history, and the Eibishter has a Ratzon for something to happen in that time, and you can't say that what happened then in history is a lesson that we have to take from it, and it's for the future generation. There's no aspect of eternity to it. It's not something that's needed for a future generation. It happened then. But something that's happened to the Yidden in the times of the Nevi'im, and it's recorded in Nach. If it's recorded in Nach, that means that this is an occurrence that happened that's connected to Yidden, it's connected to Emes, it's connected to Torah, and it's real. It's Nitzchi for all future generations, but it's not the real Nitzchi. The Emes and Nitzchi is when it's an expression of the Eibishter himself that doesn't relate to any Mitzias outside of the Eibishter himself. The moment it's a level of revelation that gives place for another being besides the Eibishter himself, that can't be Nitzchi. Real Nitzchi is when it's not related to anything. Then it's, even after Mashiach comes, it's going to remain forever and ever. Mashenkim, back into the Sikha, Mashenkim, mitzvah sateirem, nitzchiyim, mitzvah medes le'lamel, me'lamim liyosim, nitzayne shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is an expression, the will of Hashem, not related to anything. It's what the Eibishter wants. So what's the point there? This leads us up to the big question here. Mizeh, move on. So we understand from this, she'ein lo'imar, you cannot say, shanitzchi is the mitzvah sateire, hirak, v'meshach hazman dayem l'saisam. That when we talk about Torah being nitzchi, it's not really eternal. It's eternal in a certain time frame. In the time of Ayem Lasaisam, when we hear today doing mitzvahs. When the Yidden are serving Hashem, doing what? Refining and elevating the world. When we come to the time period, tomorrow, in other words, when Hashem will reward Yidden when the Aveda is done, mizbateles mitzias mitzvahs. So now there's no existence of mitzvahs anymore. But you can't say this. Why not? Because the will of Hashem in mitzvahs, it's adarabah. The real inyan of mitzvahs is not because it begins with the fact that a world exists. And now the question is, how should the world exist and function in the best way possible? So Hashem gives us a blueprint of Torah to be able to act and relate to the mitzvahs of the world in the best possible way. That's not the makar of Torah. It really works the other way around. The Torah is it. The Eibishter is everything. Anything outside the Eibishter and his Torah mitzvahs don't exist. Elamai, the Eibishter has a ratzon that there should be tefillin laid on an arm. So therefore, the arm is created for that purpose, that the mitzvah should be fulfilled. So it's two completely opposite approaches. The Rebbe would many times say that this is the difference in the two gersas of the Gemara, whether you say, Ani nivreisi l'shamash eskaini, I was created to serve my master. And then there's another gersa, Ani loy nivreisi elo l'shamash eskaini, I was not created only to serve my master. Ani nivreisi means the premises, the world exists, the world is created. We're talking about a level of Holocaust that recognizes, that comes down, there's a tzimtzum, and therefore the space for a world to exist. Now, in this world, what is its purpose? Its purpose is that it should be a jungle, that people should live with their ego and selfish. No. The purpose is that everybody should together come and recognize the Creator and serve Hashem and do what Hashem wants. Tremendous thing. But the Rebbe says that's not the ultimate purpose. Ultimate thing is to come to understand that there is no Welt B'chlal. There's no such a thing. There's no premise that the world exists. The world does not exist. It's all about the Ratzon of Hashem. And therefore, the fact that the world exists, it's just in order to be able to bring down the Ratzon of Hashem. Other way around. That's the real concept of a mitzvah. So it's not the pshat that the nitzchius of a mitzvah is a feature of a mitzvah. That's the essence of a mitzvah. The essence of a mitzvah is an expression of Hashem himself. So it's impossible to say that mitzvah is something that will ever change with time. The Rebbe concludes, so now that we have the proper understanding what this means, that the Torah is something that remains forever, what does this mean? That it will come a time period when the mitzvahs will be bottled. How are they going to be bottled? If that's the essence of Hashem himself expressed in the mitzvahs, it's impossible for it to be bottled. Right? Yeah, the question's clear.
Yeah, but the Ratzon of Hashem comes down in this world only vis-a-vis Levushim, which is thinking of Simpson.
Right,
Yeah.
correct.
So because of Simpson, we have this thing called an animal, and we have this thing called leather that comes from an animal.
Okay.
And from the leather, we have this Indian tefillin, and tefillin is something that relates to the Indian of that's what
Moichen,
right?
whatever level.
So it's how it comes down. It says so. We're saying is that what is that the only reason why a human being was created with the heart in this place, and the Malach in this place, it can be a Malach Shalit Alalev, but by Shal Rosh and Shal Yad.
Okay. So we see all these things that you just explained beautifully. When you get to a mitzvah, is not the essence of a mitzvah.
Not the essence.
It's not the essence of a mitzvah. Those are reasons, and like you say, the levushim of a mitzvah. When the mitzvah comes down to relate to the existence of the world.
Oh.
Even after the mitzvah comes down and it does relate to a specific aspect of existence, the essence of the mitzvah remains there. The essence of the mitzvah, when you do the mitzvah, the Rebbe would always say, you make a bracha on a mitzvah.
Not tied into not tied into anything.
There's a tzimtzum. Yeah, the mitzvah does relate to a specific aspect of the person's life. You can't compare the mitzvah of tefillin to the mitzvah of eating matzah. Matzah relates to one inyan, and then it's different kind of mitzvahs, and it relates to a different aspect of the person's existence, of the world's existence. But the essence of the mitzvah, which is the Ratzon of Hashem, that's removed of the whole entire existence of the world, that essence of the mitzvah remains pure even after the mitzvah relates to a certain mitzvahs. If it's the Eibishter himself in it, so even after the mitzvah comes down to relate to a specific aspect, it doesn't change what the essence of the mitzvah is. The Eibishter himself doesn't. He said, even after he comes down into this specific detail, it doesn't change what the essence of the mitzvah is.
When you say essence, you're referring to
The Ratzon of Hashem.
that which is Melubish in
Melubish.
it is.
It's Melubish, true.
But the inner
but the
core,
essence of the mitzvah remains the same.
inner core is Ratzon.
Correct.
And this is the same by every mitzvah.
Every mitzvah. The Rebbe would always say that when you make a bracha on a mitzvah, so the beginning of the bracha is always the same. Asher kedeshana b'mitzvayis v'tzivonim. The Ratzon of Hashem. It's only the conclusion of the mitzvah which is different. It could be Laniach Tefillin, it could be Leishir Basukah, it could be Natilas Lulav, but the essence of the mitzvah remains always the same. And this is it's not the concept of Chassidus. The Eibusher, even when he acts and relates to a specific thing, but it doesn't change him. The Eibusher himself does not get changed by that. A human being, when you're in a certain condition, you relate to something, so you're connected to that matzav. You adapt. You get defined by what you're involved in. If I'm sitting and thinking, so I'm in the world of seichel. If I'm involved in something emotional, so that's the place where I'm in. A human being adapts and relates to the place that he's involved in. The Eibishter, again.
All the levels of Noach, it says in
Right, correct.
But it's essence of Hashem anyway. So it's,
Correct.
It's all the essence of Hashem.
Correct. But you see, what the Eibishter wanted, that his mitzvahs should penetrate our pnimius. Why did the Eibishter bring down the mitzvahs with all these different various aspects? Why taryag mitzvahs? Why not just give one mitzvah and repeat that mitzvah again every day? Or maybe 10 times a day. One mitzvah. Maybe let it be two. The Alter Rebbe actually says a famous example. The Alter Rebbe says in L'kutei Torah, Shlach, Ilun et stavinu lach tevetzim. Give us one mitzvah to hack holz, to chop wood. One mitzvah and 10 times a day to do the same mitzvah. If it's all Ratzon Hashem anyway, so why divide it into different mitzvahs? And every mitzvah relates to a different time of the year, different aspect of the person, the mayach, the leiv, the hands, the feet, and everything else. Because Hashem wanted to elevate us and bring us close, to be involved personally, to be involved in pnimius. If you give a mitzvah to a person to do the same thing every single day of his life with absolute Kabbalah soil, in no way the mitzvah doesn't talk to me. The mitzvah doesn't relate to me on my level. And the mitzvah is, it's the pure Ratzon of Hashem, but me that's created with all these different functions in my life, how does the mitzvah relate to me? The Eibusher brought the mitzvah down that it should relate to you. But what's the point of the mitzvah? The point of the fact that the mitzvah has all these details is not to go away from the source, not to disconnect from the source. The source, the Eibusher himself, is higher than any of these details. The fact that the Eibusher brings it down into the details is not because it's chas v'shalom to lower the essence of what a mitzvah is. Adarabah, it's to have the mitzvah, which is still the essence of the Ratzon of Hashem, penetrate your being on every level. But the essence of the mitzvah remains pure. It's the essence of Hashem that's penetrating your mind, your heart, and everything else. Your fingers, when you wrap it, falling around your fingers, it's all the essence of Hashem. So if that's what a mitzvah is, how can we say mitzvahs b'teilus? That will come a time period that there'll be no mitzvahs. Let's learn out of 35. Very interesting. The Ara the Rebbe brings here from what the Rebbe Rashab writes in a Maimer. L'hor ma'mavur b'hemshech terav. Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab, he says as follows: Shaharatzen the mitzvahs hu ratzen atzmi. Ratzen atzmi she'eina mishtana. Ratzen atzmi means this is what Hashem wants in essence, not because of any purpose, not because he relates to anything. This is what he wants. Comes from him. Unchangeable. And the Rebbe Rashab continues, that it says that it will come a time period that the mitzvahs will be bottled. So the Rebbe Rashab already asks this question that the Rebbe is asking here in the Sikha. So the Rebbe Rashab answers, it does not mean that the mitzvahs, when Mashiach comes, will be bottled in the literal sense, God forbid. Kiyim, rather, what it means is, she is batlu b'pchinas heder tfisis mokayim l'gabei ha'ora atzmi d'lasid. What it means is, there'll be such a great godly revelation when Mashiach comes that the mitzvahs will be like a candle. He gives the mashal right there. When you light a candle in the middle of the afternoon when it's sunny and bright outside, and you light one candle.
So it's not there.
So it's the fact is the candle is lit, there's light, but it's ka'ayin. It has no significance. It has no significance in the presence of such great revelation. So when Mashiach comes, there'll be such great revelation that the mitzvahs will not be teifes mokim. That's what the Rebbe Rashab says.
Meaning he still wants it. There's still a mitzvah.
There's still a mitzvah because ultimately the mitzvah is the essence of Hashem. Right, it's a Ratzon Atzmi. But that Ratzon Atzmi, when Mashiach comes, the essence of the Eibusher himself will be revealed to such an extent. Sof, true, the mitzvah has in it the Ratzon of the Atzmi of the Eibusher, but that Ratzon Atzmi of the Eibusher is melubish in a specific mitzvah. It is melubish in a over here it's called a ner avaya.
So is that going to be the reason why Torah Hadashah Mekitetzeh? Because the level of mitzvahs there is not profess makom.
Correct.
So
be a completely new revelation. Correct. Correct. Right. That's the Rebbe Rashab's pshat. But in this sikha, the Rebbe is going to go a level deeper. The Rebbe is going to say a deeper pshat here. So this is a pshat, of course. I'll be Teres Emes, the Rebbe Rashab's pshat. Avol bir zeh, this explanation of the Rebbe Rashab ein shayach l'chayre lepashtus hasugya b'nida l'shittas ha'taisus. This will not explain the simple pshat of the Gemara in Nida, which is the source of this idea that mitzvahs will be bottled when Mashiach comes. What does it say there? The whole discussion is al dvar din kvura b'klayim. The Gemara discusses, could you bury a person with tachrichim that's made from klayim? Afal pi, and what's the problem? He's going to stand up at Chias Mason with the same garments that he was buried with them. Kivin shemitzvahs b'teilas, and the question that Taisa says the Gemara is discussing is if all mitzvahs are going to be the Gemara actually says that all mitzvahs are going to be bottled. So there's no problem with him being buried with kalayim, with shatnas, right? So Hainu, what do you see from the Gemara in the simple pshat? It is battle mitzvahs kalayim kipshuta. That kalayim will not be a mitzvah in the literal sense. Rabbi Rashab saying the mitzvah will be the exact same. The only question is in such a kind of environment, in the relevance to the greater revelation, the mitzvahs won't be significant. B'teilos just means in its significance, but not that it'll be bottled. The mitzvah will be there. But how does that explain the simple pshat of the Gemara? The simple pshat of the Gemara says you can bury a person with shatnez, and he's going to get up with the shatnez, and it's not an issue because the mitzvah will be bottled in the literal sense, nullified. So therefore, the Rebbe will say a deeper pshat. Today, like come on out of 46, which the Rebbe will discuss this, how maybe the pshat that the Rebbe says fits with what the Rebbe Rashab says here.
It's an amazing concept that the Gila and the Kodesh Baruch Hu, when he's so great when Mashiach comes,
Right.
that it's going to outshine Tefillin. It's going
Correct.
to outshine the
Pesach.
whatever
all
levels
Yom
of
Tov.
Kedusha we have.
By the way, we're coming up to Purim now. This is one of the big Chedushim taka that it says regarding Purim stays. And the taka says that shows that Purim, the revelation of Purim, is so great. It's actually greater than all other Yomim Tovim, and therefore, even after you have the revelation of Mashiach, greatest revelation, Purim is not going to be like a candle in the middle of daylight where it loses its significance, because Purim is greater than all other Yom Tov. Every other Yom Tov will be batal, right? Including Yom Kippur, everything. But Purim is even greater than Yom Kippur, as it says in the Tikkun Zayar, that Yom Kippur is like Purim. Kippur, exactly. Purim is even greater than Yom Kippur. So, understand how great Purim is.
This is because we're still going to have all the Yom Tovim and everything.
Correct, right. Rabbi Rashab's pshat that it'll be all the same. The mitzvahs cannot be bottled, but the significance of it, since the whole world, revelation of Atzmus, of the essence of Hashem, will be everything. So the details of a mitzvah, whether it's a Pesach, a Sukkot, a Yom Kippur, it'll all be. You'll feel what the source of mitzvahs really is. Mm-hmm. In other words, in a way, it doesn't mean. I mean, it's hard to understand this idea here, because the Rebbe Rashab is telling you that what are the mitzvahs? The mitzvahs is a ratzon atzmi. Mitzvahs is atzmos, right? Mm-hmm. So then, what is he saying? When be the revelation of the essence of the Eibusher Lasad Lavai, so then the mitzvahs will lose their significance. What do you mean? How could mitzvahs lose their significance? The premise of your question was that mitzvahs come from the very essence of Hashem himself. And therefore, mitzvahs can never be bottled. So what are you answering? When Mashiach comes, it will be the revelation of the essence of Hashem himself. And therefore, mitzvahs will lose their relevance. What does that mean? Today, the point is, of course, the essence of mitzvahs is all atzmos. But nevertheless, the way the mitzvahs are melubish, in the way we fulfill it today, you can't say that the mitzvah of eating matzah and the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah is the same inyan. It's a different concept. It accomplishes different inyan. The mitzvah today is melubish and different defanim, and the way it comes into the mitzvahs of the world, it relates to the mitzvahs of the world on a specific level. The emes is taka that it's the essence of the Eibusher that's in the mitzvah, but we don't sense that today. When Mashiach comes in, the essence of the Eibusher will be revealed. So then you'll taka feel that eating matzah, or even walking in the streets, or eating stam, a meal, is all the same thing, because it's all the essence of Hashem. If it's all the essence of Hashem, Hashem wants me to eat matzah. He wants me to blow shofar. What's the difference between matzah and shofar? It's the same thing, because it's all the essence of Hashem. So in other words, the source of what the essence of mitzvahs are will be revealed lasad lavai, and therefore the specific details of the mitzvah, Taryag, that is divided into 613, that will have no significance when Mashiach comes. That's the point. Right? We'll sense the source of the mitzvahs.
But in spite of that, we're going to be more connected.
Correct. Right.
In spite of its significance, but still,
the connection will be even deeper and stronger and greater, for sure, 100%. Okay, this is the Rebbe's question here. Should we begin the answer a little bit?
Sneak peek.
Okay, so let's start one paragraph, and then we'll meet Hashem next week. So to understand this, we have to see Tziv Dalet. Next, you see, we have to see a little bit more of what it says there in the Gemara about this, the mitzvahs being bottled. So the Gemara says, "Beged she'avad by kalayim." You have a garment that has kalayim in it, has shatnez. Are you similar to tachlichim lameis?
Shatnez is basically two kinds of
wool and linen together.
Wool and
linen. Wool and linen together, right? So that's kalayim. Shatnez, kalayim, same thing. So, can you use this for tachrichim, for the shrouds, for a dead person? Omer Rabbi Yosef, so Rabbi Yosef says, Zoyse meres, mitzvahs b'teilos lasad lavai. Yeah, you can use it for the tachrichim of a mace, and it must be that because when Mashiach comes, no more mitzvahs. Amalei Abaye, so on this Abaye says, Vitemi Rav Dimi, or Rav Dimi said, How could you say this? If that body is being covered with these shrouds in the time when he's being eulogized, that's allowed. To bury him with shatnez is not allowed. So Rav Yosef answered, but Lav Itmar Allah, didn't we learn about this? Amar Rav Yechanan, Afilu Lekaivre. Rav Yechanan said, no, you could bury him, even with this shatnez. Now the Gemara says, Rav Yechanan Taimei. Rav Yechanan follows his reasoning. Rav Yechanan, Ma'idechsiv B'meisim Chavshi. After a person passes away, he's free from mitzvahs. Kimishem Meis. Nasa Adam Chavshi Min mitzvahs. When a person passes away, he becomes free of all mitzvahs. That's the Gemara. Okay, so the Rebbe will ask that the simple pshat of here, the Gemara, is problematic. It's difficult to understand this discussion here in the Gemara. It starts off discussing about mitzvahs b'telis lasad lavai. In other words, we're concerned about tchias hamesim. And then the Gemara says, b'meisim chavshi. When the person is not alive, then he's not chayiv mitzvahs. It doesn't connect. The beginning and the end of the Gemara don't connect well over here. There's something over here in the Gemara that has to be explained. Okay, we're going to leave this for next week in Mitzvah Shem. We'll see. The Rebbe will have a completely revolutionary, a new pshat in this entire Gemara and this whole entire concept.
How many minutes was I late? You just started before it came, or it was
A few minutes, yeah.